The core of this today is a pretty simple thing. The core of this is we all have motivation systems, hundreds of motivation systems, but there's a meta motivation system, which is how we relate to ourselves navigating the world. And frequently, seekers and achievers and high conscientious people have a motivation system of it's never good enough. I'm not good enough, not far enough. Focus on failure, not on success, that kind of stuff, which is very effective. I mean, you grow, you make a lot of progress. Mm-hmm. But eventually that becomes a block if you continue to grow. And you want to turn it into a system of I'm always making progress and I'm always satisfied with the progress that I make. And the transition from that first motivation system to the second has been the focus of thousands of sessions over the last 50 years in my work. And of course, essential, as always, in my life. One teacher said to me once when he was doing his work, he says, when I'm talking to my clients, I'm always talking to myself. And that stuck with me. I thought, God, that's so true. So that's pretty simple, what I just said, right? Makes sense. Why don't we all do it? So this is a like integral, right? Yeah. Like AQUAL, all quadrants, levels, line states, and types. Okay, so inside, outside, object, single, individuals, groups, states, levels of conscious, level of development, on developmental lines, and states of consciousness and types. Pretty simple, right? Yeah. But then it goes into an infinity. And so understanding this and making the transition and helping people make the transition is a central part of change work, of the work, the service that most of us do. And so the first thing, I'll just talk a little bit about motivation systems. Yeah. Okay, so the primary motivation system that we all have came into existence with the Big Bang, because complexity theory happened. I don't know why, but it did. And in complexity theory, just briefly, if there's a group of linked differentiated parts that are arranged hierarchically and capable of chaotic behavior and are energized from the outside, they create fractal patterns. They're moving around. And when a fractal pattern that's more complex, which means simpler, more energy efficient, shows up, the whole system reorganizes and becomes more complex. And so that's why 13.7 billion years after that first thing, you and I are having this conversation. So
can I just real briefly, I just want to say, I often joke that when it comes to describing integral concepts to people, you can't say anything without first saying everything. Mm-hmm. So even here, when we're like, let's talk about motivation. Okay, let's go all the way back to the Big Bang.
Right. I can't help myself.
We got to give you the whole cosmology.
I know. I fast forward all the way to life, okay? Now, we go to life. 2 billion years ago, first prokaryote life. That cell was motivated to survive, to eat, to survive, to avoid stuff.
Right.
We still have those drives in us because things don't go away. Development is include and transcend. So more and more drives have been added. Just like, brain material. If you take the human brain, you'll see that progressively, if you go back all the way to, lizards, that the brains have been adding more material, and that material has created basically more relationships. Most of our brain are developed towards managing relationships, navigating relationships.
Right. And not just subject to subject relationships, but object to object. Like all of our mental modeling is a result of our brain constantly processing and representing these relationships, whether physical relationships or personal or what have you.
All the time.
Yeah.
And all the instincts from all of life come through us. The sex drives, the dominance drives, the submission drives, other drives. They're motivators. Mm-hmm. And they're guiding us all the time. And we've talked about that a lot when we talked about shadow and the adaptive unconscious and so on. And they're layered. They're layered from the genetic all to the social. And then there's a meta motivation, which is how do I feel about myself navigating the world? And how satisfied am I with that? Okay. Now that's a developmental achievement. Just ask that question, because you can look at the motivation systems of little kids, more egocentric. They're impulsive. They have more brain cells and fewer circuits. They want to get what they want. When they become conformists, grade schoolers, they want to fit in. Okay, when they become rational, they want to win. They want to succeed. They want to fit into the social hierarchies. When they become pluralistic, they want to be caring and they don't want to be pissed, and so on. These are all motivation systems, and we're always moving and getting better or worse. Right? Well, so when there is a motivation system like I'm never good enough, that's a through line. That's a winning strategy that can be adapted by a child to continue to strive. And if you're a seeker and if you're highly conscientious, you're vulnerable to this. Partly because a lot of motivation systems are culturally determined. So the motivation system of I'm not good enough is very culturally determined for me, because in the 50s, you were not supposed to feel like you were good enough. You were not supposed to feel great about your accomplishment. You were not supposed to announce your strengths. That was met with social disapproval and evoking shame. And yet, it's a winning strategy. You continue to never be good enough and keep striving. As a human being, your superpowers will take you farther and farther and farther and farther and farther. But at a certain point, it's exhausting. At a certain point, the frustration gets to you. And so you call up Keith and say, hey, Keith, what's going on? I'm succeeding. I can't make enough money. I can't be successful enough. I keep winning awards. I still feel empty. And I go, well, so are you ever satisfied with? No. And so the message consistently from me is you're not going to succeed your way out of this. You're not going to acquire your way out of this. This is very much like A.H. Alma's theory of wholes in the Enneagram, where each Enneatype is disconnection from a sacred idea. Like I'm a 6, so it's holy faith, holy courage. And you can't demonstrate courage, and you can't seek out teachers. That won't do it. You have to do something else, something more substantive, something more of a shift. So how do we look at this? How do we understand it? Well, there's a term in physics called Criterion velocity that is applied to human relationships. And here's what it is. Now, bear with me, everybody. We're going to do a little math here. Okay? This is math. And we all know how to do this. Criterion velocity is how much I progress over how much I expect to progress. Okay? So
why don't you say that one more time, Keith?
I will. I'll give an example.
Okay, great.
How much I progress over how much I expect to progress. So I'm going to take a walk. I expect to walk 2 miles. I end up walking a mile. I only went half as far as I expected. I have a criterion velocity in walking of 0.5. Okay? Right? I go out and I compete, and I expect to win. But I don't. I come in 3rd place instead. Okay? Which is okay, but it's not. So my criterion velocity is less than 1. Okay?
Right.
All right. Criterion velocity. If I'm never satisfied with myself, never good enough, never something, then there's always that ache in the back. And this is where fraud syndrome comes from. Everybody that I talk to that, went to college, they go, I graduated from college. I said, well, how'd you do it? Not everybody, but a lot of people. They go, I don't know. I kind of glided by. I skimmed. Nobody felt like they studied hard enough. I always felt a little guilty because I didn't read all the books that I was supposed to read. Nobody reads all the books. But, that was that that never good enough thing.
Right.
Okay?
The imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Okay, so maybe I need more, I'll go get a master's degree, and I'll read all the books, which I did.
Right.
Well, yeah, okay, it's a little better, but PhD, like that. And so at a certain point, you go, or somebody tells you, that's not the problem about achievement. The problem is that never satisfied thing was initiated by you as a winning strategy to navigate this highly competitive and dangerous world